While my mother was desperately clinging to life in intensive care, my husband was conspicuously absent. He and his family simply refused to visit. Rather than offering support, he sent a text demanding, "Wire me $15,000 for my sister's wedding and my mother's vacation." He must have thought I'd break down. I smirked, sent him a mere $50, and immediately froze all of his financial assets. Now, before the story unfolds, please let us know in the comments what state or city you're watching from. And friends, remember to hit like and subscribe so we can continue to grow and share more compelling stories with you. Inside the hospital corridor, it felt as though time had completely stopped. The clock's hands crept along the wall, their ticks nearly swallowed by the low drone of a floor polisher that had just recently passed. Kezia sat alone on a frigid metal waiting chair positioned directly outside the frosted glass door that read, "ICU." A harsh antiseptic smell stung her nostrils, mingling with the scent of day-old coffee from a paper cup resting beside her. For 12 long hours she had been there. The gray silk bonnet on her head was slightly rumpled, a mirror to her own chaotic thoughts. Her puffy eyes itched and burned the residue of tears that had dried long ago inside that room. Her mother, Mama Effie, was in a desperate struggle against a massive heart attack that had hit so suddenly that very afternoon. Kezia shut her eyes for a moment, desperately trying to erase the vision of her pale mother lying there with tubes invading her body. But the image was relentless. She recalled the sheer panic of that afternoon, finding her mother on the kitchen floor, clutching her chest and gasping for air. Just the two of them were in the house, which was Kezia's childhood home. She'd screamed for an ambulance. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably as she dialed 911. She rode to the hospital with her mother all alone. Alone, she tackled a mountain of paperwork, and alone she absorbed the doctor's grim explanation of her mother's state. She took a deep breath, swallowing the acrid bitterness lodged in her throat. She wasn't truly alone. She had a husband, she had in-laws, but where were they? The phone in her hand felt ice cold. Ever since her mother's admission to the ICU, Kezia had repeatedly tried to reach Tremaine, her husband, by phone. On her first attempt, Tremaine finally answered, his voice edged with annoyance. "What is it, Kez? I'm incredibly busy. Serafina and I are checking the venue's decor." With a trembling voice, Kezia tried to make him understand. "Tremaine, it's Mama. Mama Effie, she just had a heart attack. She's in the ICU right now." A deep sigh came through the phone. "Right, well, you handle that for now. I absolutely can't step away from Serafina's wedding plans. This is important, you know what Miss Rowena's like." "Important?" Kezia echoed silently. So her mother's life was not important. Her heart plunged. "But Tremaine, Mama's condition is critical. I desperately need you here." Tremaine sounded completely exasperated. "Stop overreacting. Your mother will get better, surely. The hospital is good, right? Look, I've gotta go. I'll call you later." And then the line simply went dead. Kezia didn't surrender. She tried calling again an hour later with no reply. She then sent a text explaining the gravity of it all. The message showed as read, but remained unanswered. In her desperation, Kezia called Miss Rowena, her mother-in-law, hoping she would understand as a mother, and might even tell Tremaine that he should come. The response she got was even more crushing. "Kezia," her voice dripped with scorn. "Stop being so theatrical. We are incredibly stressed here, wrestling with this useless wedding planner, and you call about this. Just don't add to our problems, will you? Tremaine is busy with Serafina. His sister has a wedding to plan. You're her sister-in-law. You should be supportive, and not so self-absorbed. Deal with your own mother." Click. The line went dead. Kezia just stared at her phone's blank screen. Spoiled. They dared call her spoiled for wanting her husband with her as her mother lay dying. She was the one who had always anchored this family. Her income as a chief financial officer for a leading corporation was substantially greater than Tremaine's. The very house they shared was purchased solely with Kezia's own funds. That luxury SUV Tremaine and Miss Rowena paraded around in, Kezia made the payments on it each and every month. She sent thousands of dollars to Miss Rowena's account for so-called emergencies and household upkeep, despite the woman being in perfect health. On top of that, Keziah was funding the whole of Serafina's approaching, extravagant wedding. And through it all, Keziah had remained quiet. She only ever wanted to be a good wife, an obedient daughter-in-law. She believed her financial support would eventually earn her their love and acceptance. She couldn't have been more wrong. As the night wore on, the corridor fell silent. Only she and a few other patient families remained, dozing in awkward postures along the walls. A chill settled over Keziah, one that had nothing to do with the cool air, but from a profound loneliness that pierced her to the core. She felt like a fool. All those years of work and saving just to see it wasted by his unappreciative family. Squander it all. And now, at her absolute lowest point, they had deserted her. The ache in her heart felt just as sharp as the agony her mother was likely enduring. She was a woman of faith who had always strived for patience. She fought to suppress her rage, attempting to pray. She wanted to forgive them, but the wound was far too deep. She rested her head on the cold wall. A wave of crushing fatigue swept over her, a weariness of the body and an exhaustion of the spirit. Her gaze drifted to the ICU door once more, silently pleading for her mother's strength. Abruptly, her phone buzzed in her palm. It wasn't a call. Still, her heart leaped with a sudden hope, hoping for a message from Tremaine telling her he was coming. Keziah raised her phone, the screen illuminated to display a new notification. It was a notification from her banking application. The alert stated, "Automatic transfer complete $2,000 to the account of Miss Rowena." This was the standard monthly allowance she always sent. The funds were transferred on the first of every month, automatically, no matter the circumstances. Keziah stared at the amount money that could have gone toward her mother's escalating medical bills if necessary. Funds now in the account of the woman who just hours before had instructed her, "Don't be spoiled." And with that, something inside Keziah broke. Her patience, which had always seemed like an endless reservoir, finally ran dry. The tears stopped. Her eyes, which had been stinging with sorrow, now felt like ice. She dismissed the notification and gazed emptily at the ICU door. The night was far from over, but Keziah understood that something was over for good. 2 days went by in a haze. Keziah hardly ever left the hospital. She made only brief trips home to shower and change before rushing back to her mother's bedside. She slept in that waiting room chair. The slightest sound of a nurse's approach jolted her awake. Mama Effie's state was unchanged, stable, yet still critical. She remained lost to the world, unconscious. Doctors warned the next 2 days were vital, so Keziah devoted herself to reading psalms and praying at her mother's side, wishing her voice might pierce the comatose veil that enveloped her during those 2 days. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, showing dozens of missed calls from Tremaine, Miss Rowena, and from Serafina. Hundreds of messages sat unread. Keziah was certain they were furious that the additional money transfer had failed to process. Or perhaps Tremaine was angered by her silence. Keziah was indifferent and simply switched off the ringer, leaving just the vibration. Her sole focus was her mother's health. Then came the morning of the 3rd day. After gently bathing her mother with a warm cloth, Keziah found a moment's respite in the hospital cafeteria, where she forced herself to consume a bagel and some hot tea. She needed the energy. Falling ill wasn't an option. It was then her phone buzzed again against the tabletop. This time, it was a lengthy text from Tremaine. Her heart leaped with a small, foolish flicker of hope inside her, that perhaps Tremaine had regained his senses. It could be an apology, she thought, or he might finally ask about her mother's health. Her hands, unsteady from sheer exhaustion, opened the text. It contained no apology nor any inquiry about her mother's well-being. It was a string of demands. "Keziah, where are you? Why won't you answer my calls or respond to my texts? You're ignoring my mother deliberately, aren't you? Miss Rowena claims you're bitter about our disagreement the other day. Whatever. Stop acting so childish. It doesn't matter what you think. My mother needs you to immediately transfer $15,000 to her account. It must be done today to secure the deposit for Serafina's new hall. The venue owner canceled the last one we had booked. The remainder is for my mother's trip to Turks and Caicos. She needs to avoid the stress of organizing the wedding details. She needs her peace of mind. The text went on. Don't be cheap. This money is for our future too. Serafina's wedding and our family's honor are at stake. If it's canceled, how can we possibly show our faces? Besides, my mother absolutely needs a break. The poor woman. So send the $15,000 right now. The money must be in her account by tomorrow morning. I'm waiting. Keziah read the text once, then twice, then a third time. Her exhausted mind struggled to process the words: stress, peace of mind, family honor, a vacation in Turks and Caicos. $15,000. Upstairs in this very building, just a few floors above the cafeteria, her own mother was battling for her very life. And yet not her husband nor his family had bothered to ask about her even a single time. They were only concerned with the party, the money, and their vacation. All at once, Keziah felt something shift inside as a dry, raspy laugh escaped from her lips. It started softly, then grew louder. A few patrons in the cafeteria turned to stare at her strangely at the woman in the head wrap laughing, by herself in the hospital cafeteria. Keziah paid them no mind. She laughed until tears streamed down her face, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were the tears of a rage that had finally boiled over. What did they take her for? An ATM machine devoid of any feelings. A money tree to be shaken at their will. They assumed she would just comply, that she would transfer the sum while crying her eyes out. Too preoccupied with her mother to put up a fight. Keziah's laughter ceased suddenly, her pale expression now set and hard as stone. Her stare turned cold and piercing. The fog in her mind evaporated, leaving utter clarity behind, replaced by a searing determination. For years her patience had been a misguided sense of duty. Now she understood it was pure stupidity. She reached for her phone, its cracked corner mirroring her fractured marriage. Her mind flashed to the $15,000, the emergency reserve she held in her personal investment account. It was money saved for years for a desperate moment, and this, Keziah decided, was an emergency to save herself. With resolute fingers that had ceased to tremble, Keziah launched her banking application. She bypassed her investment account. She selected her main checking account, where the balance was depleted because she had just used it. To pay the deposit for her mother's hospital bills, she tapped the transfer menu, inputting Tremaine's account number, a sequence she knew by heart. Then she entered the amount, not $15,000, but a mere $50. Her finger hovered for a heartbeat over the send button. This was the moment. Her line in the sand. After this, there was no possibility of going back. She would no longer be the compliant Keziah. She would no longer be the foolish Keziah. She pressed the button firmly. Transfer complete. She then navigated to her messages, opening Tremaine's long-winded text. Scrolled to the reply box and typed a brief, clear, and cutting response. This is for you to purchase some minutes for your phone. Do not contact me again. She hit send. 2 blue checks appeared instantly. Her phone erupted into a violent ringing. Tremaine's name illuminated the screen. Keziah watched the incoming call, letting it ring until it died, only for it to start again. Her mother-in-law's name appeared next. She ignored it. Then Serafina's name flashed. She ignored that as well. Keziah flipped the silent switch on her phone. Then she began searching for her lawyer's number, the one who had handled her father's estate. She allowed a cold, calculating smile to form. A far grander plan began to crystallize in her mind, a plan to give them a lesson. Less than 30 seconds after her message about buying phone minutes was sent, Keziah's phone screen blazed to life. Like a Christmas tree in a violent storm, it was an incoming call from Tremaine. Keziah gazed at her husband's smiling photo on the screen, a smile that now looked utterly false and repulsive. She let the call ring and ring and ring until it eventually went silent, replaced by a missed call alert. A minute later, a text message appeared. This time, it was in all capital letters. "Are you out of your mind? Are you insulting me?" Keziah did not reply. She was walking toward the ICU waiting area, her steps now firm. The next message read, "Quick send the $15K now." I am not joking, Keziah. My mother is going to be absolutely furious. Then came another call, this time from her mother-in-law. Keziah let it go to voicemail, followed by an immediate call from Serafina. She dismissed that one too. Her phone buzzed relentlessly in her palm. The vibration felt like a distant hum of rage, but strangely it did not frighten her. It only made her feel more powerful. Voicemails started to accumulate. Keziah had no need to listen to know exactly what they contained. She could hear Miss Rowena's shrill tones berating her, labeling her a disloyal wife, ungrateful and cheap. Plus all the other names she had previously only dared to speak behind her back. She pictured Serafina whining, undoubtedly blaming her if her dream wedding had failed. Tremaine, her husband, was surely panicking now, trapped between the demands of his mother and his sister, and finally realizing his financial wellspring was in revolt. Keziah sank back onto the cold metal chair and opened her photo gallery, finding a picture of her mother smiling during their lunch a month prior, a genuine smile that stood in stark contrast to the sly grins of her husband's relatives. For so long Keziah had toiled, letting her faith serve as a constant reminder to remain patient and always act with kindness. She believed her patience was a virtue but had forgotten a critical lesson. You are also taught not to permit your own oppression. She'd forgotten that kindness, when exploited, becomes foolishness. Her phone buzzed once more, a new text from Tremaine. All right, you're upset about your mother, aren't you? I apologize. Just send the funds now and I will visit your mother afterward, I swear. Promise a word that now sounded so hollow. Keziah once more pressed the silence key on her phone's side. She silenced not only the ringer but the vibration as well. She required silence to plan her next move. She could not be disturbed by the complaints of those financial leeches anymore. She scrolled through her contacts for a name, one she had not dialed in years, but had saved for a true emergency. Attorney Sterling. He was a longtime friend of her late father, the very lawyer who assisted her in managing the inheritance and assets from her father before her marriage to Tremaine. Keziah carried her phone to a quiet corner in the hall by a window that looked out onto the hospital garden. She inhaled deeply and then tapped the call button. Hello. Good morning, Sterling here. A deep voice greeted on the other line. Good morning, Attorney Sterling. This is Keziah. She replied, her tone eerily calm, level, and cold. She was even surprised by her own composure. Keziah, my dear child, how are you? It is quite rare to hear from you this early. I do hope you're calling with good news. Mr. Sterling's voice held a fatherly warmth. My news is on its way to becoming good, sir. However, my mother is currently in the ICU, Keziah stated plainly. My apologies, but I have little time for pleasantries. I require your legal assistance at once. Mr. Sterling's tone shifted to serious immediately. Certainly, Keziah. Just tell me what is required. Anything at all. I need you to freeze every joint account under my name and my husband Tremaine's. Consider it done, Sterling replied instantly. Joint accounts understood. That is easily arranged. The majority of the assets are solely in your name, correct? Not the majority, sir, all of them. Tremaine never contributed a single cent. I see, Mr. Sterling affirmed. Second, Keziah went on, her gaze fixed upon the garden below. I need you to cease all automatic and standing transfer orders from all of my personal accounts, specifically those going to Tremaine, a Miss Rowena, and also to a Serafina, his sister. I need them all halted effective this instant. Understood, that is simple. I will handle it. Keziah exhaled. This next part is the most critical. Third, please confirm the house where Tremaine and I are now living, on Royal Oak Drive. It is 100% in my name, is that right? A direct inheritance from my father, not marital property. There was a brief pause. Perhaps Mr. Sterling was reviewing files on his computer. That is correct, Keziah. The deed is registered solely in your name. Daughter of John was acquired pre-marriage, so your husband has no legal right to any money from that property. Excellent, Keziah whispered fiercely. I need you to manage the sale at once. Begin today. Get the listing up and notify the agents. I am determined to sell that house this time. Mr. Sterling paused for a long moment. Keziah, this is a monumental decision. Are you certain? I'm certain, Sir Keziah interjected. I am absolutely certain I've housed a family of leeches for far too long. In the home my father bequeathed to me. The time has come to clean house. Keziah was unaware, but inside his stylish office, Mr. Sterling allowed a small, satisfied smile to form. He had been acquainted with Keziah for many years. He was aware of this young woman's kindness and had long suspected she was being exploited by her husband's relatives. I've been anticipating these instructions for quite some time, Miss Keziah. Mr. Sterling stated, his voice resuming its professional tone, yet it carried a note of encouragement. I had a feeling this day would arrive. Your father would be so proud of you, that you are at last making a stand. Is there anything else? For a second, Keziah's mind went blank. Anything more? Yes. The vehicle my husband uses, and the one Miss Rowena drives. Who is the registered owner of my mother-in-law's car? Who makes the payments? Keziah's lips curved into a cold smile. You are correct. That is in my name as well. The installments are auto-debited from my account. Perfect. I'll contact the leasing company regarding the payment suspension and will use a power of attorney authorized by you. Both vehicles could be repossessed by the collectors within 2 days. Proceed, Sir Keziah commanded. Do absolutely everything. I will email the power of attorney for your digital signature within the next 5 minutes, stated Mr. Sterling. Focus on your mother, Keziah. Allow me to take out this garbage. Then the line went dead. Keziah felt the tension she'd held in her shoulders for years finally begin to ease. She returned to the waiting area and glanced at her phone. Its screen was flooded with notifications, countless unread messages, and numerous missed calls. They had to be bewildered by now, but they still had no idea. This was only the start. She recalled Tremaine's text, $15,000 for a trip. Keziah let out a soft laugh. Indeed, she had $15,000 in her investment fund. Her emergency savings and a far better purpose for that money had emerged. That $15,000 was Keziah's lifeline. It represented her tireless effort, beads of sweat, and endless hours of overtime. She maintained it in a separate investment portfolio. She never withdrew from it, always reminding herself it was for a crisis, for unexpected medical bills, or some catastrophe. She never imagined the catastrophe would manifest as the greed of her own family, and now Tremaine's audacious demand felt like a shock that jolted her awake. This was a true emergency one to preserve her sanity, her self-respect, and her future. Following her call with Mr. Sterling, Keziah's resolve sharpened once more. She no longer felt like a trapped victim. She was now a chess master who had just maneuvered a piece into an offensive position. She settled back into the chair beside her mother's bed. Mama Effie remained asleep, still under the effects of the sedatives. Her breaths were steady, aided by a machine. As she held her mother's warm yet frail hand, Keziah felt her own strength growing. She took her phone not to view the torrent of insults from Tremaine's family, but to begin some investigation of her own. She required confirmation. Opening her chat log with Serafina, Tremaine's sister, she began to scroll upward. Gliding past dozens of photos of wedding dresses and lavish decor that Serafina had sent seeking her endorsement, or more precisely, financial approval. Finally, she found the document, a PDF file, with a proposal from the renowned wedding planner Red Rose Events, including the contact number for the person in charge. Taking a steadying breath, Keziah dialed the number. Good morning, Red Rose Events, this is Cheyenne, a bright voice answered. Good morning, Cheyenne. My name is Keziah. I am Serafina's sister-in-law responsible for managing the wedding payments. Up to this point. The warmth in Cheyenne's voice faded, replaced by a cautious professional tone. Ah, Miss Keziah, thank you for calling. I have been attempting to reach Serafina and Miss Rowena since yesterday, but they have not been answering. I apologize, ma'am, this matter is quite urgent. Urgent? How so? Keziah asked, feigning ignorance. You see, ma'am, the deposit for the venue and the catering payment was due yesterday. It totals $15,000. We extended their deadline until today at 12 noon, but if payment doesn't arrive, the venue and catering for that date will regrettably be released to another client, who is on our waiting list. This is already impacting our standing with vendors. Exactly $15,000, the very same amount. They were desperate, scrambling for the money as the deadline loomed over them. I understand completely, Cheyenne, Keziah replied with a composed voice. I appreciate you sharing this information. So should I expect the transfer, ma'am? I can wait until 12, Cheyenne insisted. I will handle it, Keziah replied enigmatically. But please, do not tell Serafina or Miss Rowena I called. This is my concern now. Keziah hung up. So the $15,000 was the shakedown. They were attempting to pin on her to settle their own debts. She could simply ignore it, allowing Serafina's wedding to be canceled. The venue forfeited and let them face the humiliation. But that was far too simple. It would only bring them temporary disgrace. She aimed to teach them a lesson they would never forget, a profound lesson in priorities. Then something came to mind. She opened her laptop, which she always kept inside her work bag. She opened an old folder revealing an email conversation with her mother from about a year ago. In it, her mother had sent a website link. Keziah, you must see this, the Children's Hope Foundation. Her mother had written in the message, they assist with the medical expenses for children battling cancer from families with little income. So noble. If I ever had spare money, I would gladly help them. The prayers of those children must be answered. Her mother never had any extra money, as every benefit she should have received. Every ounce of affection and every dollar Keziah tried to give her was constantly siphoned into the seemingly bottomless pockets of Miss Rowena and Tremaine. A heat rose in Keziah's eyes. Her own mother, despite her simple life, always considered others, while her mother-in-law, amidst her luxury, only considered herself. Keziah navigated to the foundation's website. Its donation page was straightforward, featuring pictures of young children with shaved heads who wore courageous smiles on their faces. A profound feeling stirred in Keziah's heart. This was it. This was the answer to her prayers and the absolute best way to use that $15,000. Without a single moment of hesitation, she opened her banking app, accessed her investment account, and initiated a withdrawal from the emergency fund. The transfer was instantaneous. She then went back to the donation page. She keyed in the amount, $15,000. For the donor's name, she ignored her own typing with resolute fingers. Donation in the name of the recovery of Mama Effie. She intended for every prayer uttered from that foundation, from those children, to be directed toward her mother, who was lying in the ICU. She then clicked to confirm the transfer. Transaction successful. An email containing the official receipt arrived in her inbox instantly. Keziah captured a screenshot of the confirmation, a simple image displaying the bank's logo, the transfer total, and the recipient's name, Children's Hope Foundation. This was her chosen weapon, not an explosive bomb, but a precise scalpel to cut directly into the heart of their conceit. She opened the family group chat, bypassing the dozens of irate private messages. She went straight to Tremaine's family group, the one filled with all of Tremaine's haughty aunts, uncles, and cousins, the very same group where Miss Rowena perpetually boasted about Tremaine's success and the generosity of her daughter-in-law Keziah, the very group where the scheme for Serafina's extravagant wedding was a daily topic. Keziah drew a deep breath. She typed not a single word, offered no explanation, and sent no curse in return. She merely selected the screenshot of the $15,000 receipt. Then she firmly pressed the send button. Message sent. One gray check, which in seconds turned into two blue checks, read. Someone was clearly online, perhaps Miss Rowena herself or Serafina, anxiously awaiting news of Keziah's payment. They must have opened the message assuming it was the proof of payment for their designated wedding planner. Zaya could almost see their faces, a mask of confusion. They demanded $15,000 for a party, and they received a receipt for charity. Keziah placed her phone on the table, screen side down. She switched off her mobile data. That was enough for one day. Enough. She returned to her mother's bedside holding her hand. Mama, she whispered tenderly, Keziah made a donation in your name. Please get well soon. Those children are now praying for you. A sense of peace, a profound calm washed over her. She neither knew nor cared that back in that group chat, a silent time bomb had just been detonated. The following morning, the sun was shining with a brilliant intensity as if to mock the impending chaos set to erupt at the chic designer boutique downtown. Miss Rowena and Serafina were in exceptionally high spirits. They had conveniently forgotten the irritation from 2 days prior. The $50 message and Keziah's sharp reply were dismissed as a mere tantrum from an overwrought wife. They were certain that under the weight of familial honor, Keziah would eventually surrender. The $15,000 had to have arrived in Miss Rowena's account this morning. "Oh look, Mama, this dress!" Serafina exclaimed, twirling elegantly before a massive mirror. She was adorned in a sparkling off-shoulder gown that was worth thousands of dollars. Everyone will be completely speechless. "But of course, my darling," Miss Rowena replied, taking a sip of the sparkling water served by a boutique assistant. She glanced at her watch. It was 9 a.m. Her day was meticulously planned after settling the venue deposit. She would waste no time transferring the final $2,000 to the travel agent for her lavish Turks and Caicos vacation. She was quite eager, wasn't she, Serafina? The designer remarked with a smile. "Miss Rowena, the dress is a perfect fit, so we'll finalize this one. As per our agreement, a 50% deposit is required today to begin the alterations." "Of course, simple enough," Miss Rowena stated arrogantly. She produced her platinum credit card. "Kindly process this in your office." In his air-conditioned office, Tremaine sat at his desk. He stared blankly at his computer screen, feeling completely restless. He had been unable to reach Keziah for 2 days as her phone was inactive. Tremaine tried to reassure himself that Keziah was just being emotional. But Keziah had never acted this way before. Nevertheless, his anxiety was suppressed by the faith he had in his mother's words. His mother always insisted Keziah was madly in love with him. Keziah wouldn't dare do such a thing. The money had to have been sent. He only needed to await his mother's update. Back at the boutique, the attendant came back with a look of slight apprehension. "My apologies, ma'am, but the card was declined." Miss Rowena's smile faltered. "Declined? That's impossible. Run it again. Your machine must be faulty." So the attendant tried it again. "It declined again, ma'am. Insufficient funds." Miss Rowena's face flushed crimson. "Limit this card has a limit of tens of thousands, and I know for a fact Keziah pays the bill promptly every time. Impossible. Give it here." She demanded, pulling out another card. "Debit card, also insufficient funds, ma'am." A cold sweat beaded on Miss Rowena's brow. Something was terribly wrong. She rushed to call Tremaine. "Tremaine, all of my cards are being declined. Check your mother's bank account now. Has Keziah's money been deposited?" Hearing the sheer panic in his mother's voice, Tremaine felt a wave of fear himself. "Hold on, Mama." He quickly opened his banking app. He checked his own account first. He went completely still. His balance was a mere $34.50. Keziah was supposed to deposit his $1,000 monthly allowance yesterday. The money wasn't there. He then checked his mother's account, which was also linked to his phone. He keyed in the PIN. The screen flashed balance $10.30. The $15,000 was not there. The $2,000 that always arrived on the first of the month was missing too. The account was practically empty. "Tremaine, what is happening?" Miss Rowena shrieked into the phone, causing several other customers to turn and stare. "There's nothing, Mama," Tremaine answered, his voice trembling. "Absolutely nothing has been deposited at all." "What?" Miss Rowena screeched. "That girl, your wife, she actually cut us off. The absolute nerve of her." Back in his office, the air-conditioned room suddenly felt stifling. His heart hammered in his chest. This was more than anger. This was a complete disaster. He called Keziah again. "The number you have dialed is not in service." He tried WhatsApp, just one checkmark. He was blocked. Or maybe her mobile data was simply off, but the end result was still the same. Keziah was gone. Back in the boutique, the atmosphere had become mortifying. "My apologies, Miss Rowena," said the designer, her tone now cold and clinical. "If payment isn't settled today, we cannot proceed any further." Serafina, standing there in the dress worth thousands of dollars, started to sob. "Mama, what will we do? This is so humiliating, Mama. It's going to be called off." "Silence!" Miss Rowena snarled. She was frantic. She absolutely had to get that money. She rang Tremaine again. "Get your wife on the phone. Bring her here and say she either transfers it now or you're divorcing her." The word divorce resounded in Tremaine's ears. He was terrified. He couldn't leave Keziah. Leaving her meant losing his financial lifeline. He had to remedy this situation. At that very moment, Serafina's phone blared to life. Displayed on the screen was the name Cheyenne from Red Rose Events. Instantly, Serafina's face lost all its color. This had to be about the deposit of $15,000 for the event space. "Hello, Cheyenne." She answered, her voice quivering. The cheerful tone in Cheyenne's voice was gone. It was now firm, professional, and completely unyielding. "Good afternoon, Serafina. It is 12:05 p.m. and I am confirming the deposit of $15,000 has yet to be received." "Yes, my apologies, Cheyenne. It is just that we have a slight—" Cheyenne cut her off. "That won't be necessary, Serafina. I am merely calling to inform you, as per our contract, that since the payment deadline has passed, the venue booking the catering and all vendors associated with Serafina's booking for that date are officially terminated." "Terminated!" screeched Serafina, her eyes widening in horror. "That is correct, and there is one more item." Cheyenne went on, her voice like the final strike of a gavel. "We just concluded a call with Miss Keziah's legal counsel, Mr. Sterling. He has given us official notice that Miss Keziah is retracting all financial backing for this event, making the matter perfectly clear." Serafina felt the air leave her lungs. Cheyenne added, "And one more thing. The venue for your date has already been booked by another client from our waitlist. They paid in full just 5 minutes ago." "Good afternoon." The phone slipped from Serafina's fingers, tumbling onto the thick carpet of the bridal shop. Without a sound yet for Miss Rowena and Serafina, it was like a bomb had just detonated, destroying everything. "The wedding is off." Serafina's scream was the first sound to shatter the humiliating silence in the boutique, not a quiet weep, but a piercing shriek brimming with both rage and shame. "It's all cancelled, everything, and it's all because of Keziah." Miss Rowena, her face already pale with rage, staggered back. She grabbed onto the service counter to keep from collapsing. "What does that mean?" she hissed. Serafina, tears streaking her expensive makeup, screamed at her mother. "They just phoned. Everything has been cancelled," Keziah's lawyer called them. "She pulled all the money. We are ruined. Mama, absolutely ruined." The boutique staff and several other customers selecting materials were now all staring directly at them, with expressions blending surprise and amusement. The spectacle was simply too good to miss. The boutique's owner motioned for the security guard. "I am sorry, Miss Rowena and Serafina," she said, her voice completely devoid of warmth. "I believe your business with us is concluded. Please change out of that dress, Serafina, and handle your issues elsewhere." Ejected. They were actually being ejected from the boutique. This was the absolute peak of humiliation for Miss Rowena, a socialite accustomed to being treated like royalty everywhere she went. With defeated steps, Serafina retreated to the fitting room, slamming the door. Miss Rowena was shaking with a mix of fury, humiliation, and terror, as the boutique showdown was merely the start. Meanwhile, a different kind of drama was playing out online. The Children's Hope Foundation, where Keziah sent her donation, operated with a strict policy of transparency for major contributions. Precisely at 7 a.m., the foundation's official social media page, with its tens of thousands of followers, shared a new post. This was no mere thank you, but an elegantly crafted digital announcement, featuring smiling portraits of several children battling cancer, centered with the bold words, "A new hope has arrived," both a prayer and a blessing. Underneath the caption began, "The whole family at the Children's Hope Foundation." would like to express our profound gratitude for the remarkable donation we have received today. A sum of $15,000 was given by a virtuous woman of God who has dedicated this generous gift to her mother's recovery. Thanks to this benefactor in the name of Mama Effie's healing, this gift will fully fund chemotherapy and living costs for 10 of our young cancer warriors. For the coming 6 months, everyone here, especially the children, prays for Mama Effie's swift recovery from her illness and is granted complete health. Amen. The post exploded instantly with hundreds of likes and comments pouring in. In just minutes, countless people echoed amen to the prayer, and inevitably the post surfaced on the timelines of Miss Rowena's high society friends. They were all interconnected online and followed the very same charitable accounts to uphold their public image. At that moment, Tremaine's family WhatsApp chat quiet since Keziah's screenshot lit up. Once more, Tremaine's aunt was the first to see it. She shared the foundation's post in the group, typing, "My goodness, how noble." The aunt added, "Is that Keziah's mother, Mama Effie, the one who is ill?" Another cousin replied, "Wow, $15,000, the exact sum that was in Keziah's screenshot from yesterday. So she actually donated it." Tremaine's uncle then chimed in, "Your daughter-in-law is incredible, Rowena. When her husband demands money for a party, she instead gives to charity for her ailing mother. Truly a devoted wife, no question." Miss Rowena's phone, which she'd just powered on after fleeing the boutique heartbroken, was overwhelmed with these notifications. She opened the WhatsApp group, her eyes widening as she scanned the flood of comments. Every word of praise for Keziah felt like a fiery slap across her face. Then the private messages began to arrive. From her circle at the social club, "Rowena, I just saw the foundation's post. $15,000. My compliments to your daughter-in-law. But listen, I heard from the boutique staff that Serafina's wedding is off. How can that be? You said there was no money, yet she used it for charity." Another text appeared. "Miss Rowena, is it true? Serafina's wedding has been called off because the planner wasn't paid. But then, how did your daughter-in-law donate $15,000? What is going on here?" Their humiliation was now a public spectacle. They didn't just lose the money, and they didn't just lose the dream wedding. Now to the entire world they appeared as a greedy family attempting to exploit their devout daughter-in-law, while her own mother was gravely ill, and they had failed spectacularly. Miss Rowena's reputation, constructed over many years as a respected socialite, was utterly demolished that afternoon. Tremaine at his office also saw the post. Several colleagues had tagged him. "Incredible, Trey. Your wife just donated $15,000. What a power play, congrats. Wishing your mother-in-law a swift recovery." Tremaine felt sick, unable to respond. He felt utterly foolish. The rage, humiliation, and panic were cresting into a tidal wave. In the boutique's parking lot, Miss Rowena, Serafina, and Tremaine convened. Their expressions were grim masks of pure hatred. "This will not stand," Miss Rowena hissed, her eyes bloodshot with fury. "That girl made a mockery of us. We must confront her, make her pay for this humiliation." "She's right." Tremaine nodded, his pride as a husband and a man utterly destroyed. The money had become irrelevant. He was consumed by his trampled dignity. "We're going to the hospital now. We will force a confrontation." "I'm coming too," Serafina yelled. "I'll snatch that bonnet right from her head in a blind rage." The trio piled into Tremaine's car, the very one Keziah's money was paying for, and sped furiously toward the hospital. They were oblivious that this would be their final ride in that vehicle. They descended upon the hospital lobby like a tempest, striding quickly, furious, and ignoring every stare. Marching directly to the reception desk, Tremaine snapped, "We're here for Keziah. Which room is her mother in?" The receptionist flinched. "Pardon me, sir, but the patient's name—" "Mama Effie," Miss Rowena cut in impatiently. The receptionist typed, then looked up, her face now a professional mask. "My apologies, ma'am, sir. The patient, Mama Effie, is located in the ICU." "Then we're going to the ICU," Tremaine interrupted, heading directly for the elevator. "Wait, sir." Suddenly, two imposing hospital security guards materialized, obstructing their path completely. What's the meaning of this? Tremaine demanded, his voice rising. The taller guard regarded them with calm authority. Pardon me, sir, ma'am. Per a special directive from Miss Keziah, the patient's legal guardian, we have received explicit orders regarding Mr. Tremaine, Miss Rowena, and Seraphina. You are expressly forbidden from visiting the patient or approaching Miss Keziah anywhere on these hospital grounds. The refusal was like a solid concrete wall materializing instantly before them. Tremaine, Miss Rowena, and Seraphina stood paralyzed in the hospital lobby, which now felt suffocatingly crowded under the stares of several visitors and inquisitive nurses piercing them. The two large guards remained stationary, their expressions professionally blank, yet leaving no space for argument. You can't do this? Tremaine blustered, attempting to assert his last shred of authority. I am her husband. Keziah is my wife. I have certain rights. The taller guard tilted his head just a fraction. I'm sorry, sir. Your rights as a husband do not override the direct instructions from the patient's legal guardian. Miss Keziah was quite specific about your name, these ladies, and the young woman's, he stated, gesturing to each of them in turn. The order is explicit: unwanted visitors who may disrupt the patient's tranquility. Each word landed like a physical blow. Disturb the peace! Miss Rowena seethed, her face crimson with contained fury. We are the family here. She's the one creating all the chaos. The second guard stepped in, his voice low and menacing. I must advise the lady and her family to exit the lobby immediately. Any further disturbance will compel us to contact internal security. Miss Rowena's already fractured dignity was utterly crushed, first ejected from the boutique, and now expelled from the hospital. Seraphina, previously motionless, started to sob. That's enough, Mama. Let's leave, this is so humiliating, she whispered, tugging her mother's sleeve. Tremaine glared towards the ICU elevator, as though his stare could penetrate the floors to find Keziah. Hate was there, but so was fear. He was just realizing Keziah's true power, just how dependent he was on the woman he'd underestimated for so long. With heavy, shame-filled steps, the trio turned away. They trudged from the cool lobby back into the sweltering heat of the parking lot. The ride back in the car, Keziah's car, was silent and suffocating. Nobody spoke a word. Miss Rowena stared blankly out the window, her jaw tight. In the back, Seraphina was sobbing hysterically. Tremaine's knuckles turned white from his fierce grip on the steering wheel. They had just one destination: back to their home on Royal Oak Drive. They needed to talk to Scheme to find a way to convince, or even force Keziah to restore everything to how it was. As the car entered their posh housing complex, Tremaine started to feel a sliver of calm. That house was his fortress. There he was the king. But that calm was instantly shattered as the car neared their house. Tremaine suddenly slammed on the brakes. An unfamiliar black sedan was parked before his door, and two men dressed in formal suits were there, standing before the wrought iron gate. One of them was affixing a large white paper onto his gate. Who are they? Miss Rowena hissed, her confusion shifting instantly to alarm. Tremaine did not reply. He exited the vehicle, with Miss Rowena and Seraphina close behind. They approached the suited men. Excuse me, whose residence is this? Tremaine asked with an aggressive tone, attempting to intimidate. The man eyed him calmly before glancing at a clipboard he held. You are Mr. Tremaine. Yes, I am. What is this about? Excellent. We represent the law firm of Sterling and Associates, the man stated, offering a thick brown envelope to Tremaine. This is a formal notice for you, Miss Rowena, and for Seraphina. And this, he gestured to the large document he had just posted on the gate, is an official notice. Tremaine ripped open the envelope with force. His hand trembled while he read the contents. It was penned in stiff legal terminology, but its meaning was unmistakable. The home at 12 Royal Oak Drive is the sole property of Miss Keziah. Mr. Tremaine, Miss Rowena, and Seraphina no longer possess authorization to reside at the premises. Said property is now officially listed for sale by a licensed real estate agent. You are granted a grace period of 14 days from the date of this letter to vacate the residence and surrender all keys. Any property damage or refusal to leave will result in criminal prosecution. Tremaine read the last sentence over and over. Vacate the house. 14 days. His mind raced. My house impossible. This is my home, Tremaine yelled, crushing the letter in his hand. I'm her husband. My apologies, sir, the man said unfazed. The property deed is in Miss Keziah's name, acquired before the marriage. This is her property exclusively. We are merely executing our duties alongside him. Miss Rowena's eyes scanned the large letters posted on the gate. The words were printed in bold capital letters. This property is for sale under legal supervision, no trespassing with Mr. Sterling's contact number. No, this cannot be happening. Miss Rowena stumbled backward, clutching the gate's pillar for support. Neighbors on their evening stroll started to notice. A few even paused, whispering, Keziah! Miss Rowena screamed, finally losing control. Keziah has lost her mind. She's throwing us out. Tremaine was still frozen by the letter, his mind unable to process this reality. He had just lost his home. It was then that the loud rumble of a diesel engine was heard approaching from down the street. A massive yellow tow truck decelerated, coming to a halt directly behind Tremaine's vehicle. Following it, 2 motorcycles with men in leather jackets pulled up. Repo men. A stern-faced man climbed out of the tow truck. He strode towards Tremaine. Pardon me, is this the silver SUV with this license plate number? Still dazed, Tremaine could only nod. The man presented a repossession order. We represent the leasing company. The owner has ceased all payments on the notes under Miss Keziah's name for this vehicle, as per the contractual agreement. We have orders to seize this vehicle. Sir, I need the keys immediately. Tremaine glanced down at the letter, then at his car, then back to the stern-faced man. It was then he realized, of course, this car, the car. He so proudly showed his friends the one for taking his mother shopping was not his either. It was Keziah's. Wait a minute, Tremaine said frantically. There's been a misunderstanding, I'll pay. Apologies, sir, but my order is to seize the vehicle, not to collect. Do you have the keys? He asked impatiently. This is my car. Get lost. Tremaine shouted, and the man signaled to his 2 friends on the motorcycles. The burly men dismounted and the atmosphere grew tense. Are you going to hand over the keys peacefully, or will we be forced to take them? The repo man stated flatly. Serafina cried out in fear. Miss Rowena stood there silently, her face as pale as a corpse. Tremaine trembled, looking to his left at the lawyer's man. He glanced right at the menacing repo men. Straight ahead on his own gate hung the sign declaring it was for sale. They were completely cornered. They had lost everything. With shaking hands, Tremaine fumbled in his pocket. He then hurled the car keys onto the pavement. Take them! He hissed, his voice broken with rage and shame. The repo man calmly scooped up the keys. Thank you for cooperating. He entered the vehicle, started it, and drove it onto the back of the tow truck. The man from the law firm nodded. Our work here is done. Good afternoon. He then entered his vehicle and departed. The tow truck started up and drove away slowly, taking Tremaine's car with it. Tremaine, Miss Rowena, and Serafina stood there on the curb in front of the house that they no longer owned, with no car and with no money. And worst of all, under the gaze of dozens of neighbors' eyes, all watching their afternoon tragedy unfold. In under 3 hours, they had lost it all. The sun started its descent, painting the sky in beautiful hues of gold and orange. But to Tremaine, Miss Rowena, and Serafina, that beautiful light felt like a cruel joke. They remained motionless on the sidewalk, standing before the house that now felt like a stranger's. The gate was barred, and the for sale sign a mocking sneer. Neighbors who had once only whispered now boldly appeared, pretending to tend to plants or wash their cars when it was obvious they were there to watch. Get inside, Tremaine hissed. He rattled the gate, but it was firmly locked naturally. He figured Keziah had instructed Mr. Sterling to replace the lock or engage the digital security system, which only she could bypass. So what now? Serafina shrieked hysterically. We're meant to sleep on the pavement. Tremaine, you have to do something. You are her husband. Be quiet. Tremaine snapped, his frustration boiling over you. Think this is simple. Miss Rowena, who had been deathly silent, finally began to stir. Her pale complexion was now a mask of cold fury. We cannot stay here, it is far too humiliating, she said, her voice low. We're leaving. Leaving to where? Asked Tremaine, lost. We are without a car and without money. Call Miss Rowena commanded. Call our relatives. Call Aunt Fatima. Call your uncle, have him come and collect us. Tremaine was hesitant as ever since he had managed to marry Keziah. His immediate family had maintained a distance from other kin. Miss Rowena always carried herself as superior. But at this moment he was without a choice. He pulled out his phone, navigated to contacts, and called his uncle. The line connected. Hello, Tremaine. Hello, uncle, sorry for the bother. Could you perhaps? Oh yes, Trey. I was just about to send you a text, his uncle interrupted. I saw what the foundation posted. That wife of yours is wild. Keziah is just wonderful. $15,000 she gave in her mother's name, and I heard in the family group. You all needed the funds for Seraphina's wedding. Wow, Keziah is such a devoted wife, putting her mother first in charity. You're a very lucky man. Cheers. Tremaine was frozen. The news had already spread like wildfire. His uncle was offering congratulations, but each word felt like a slap. Trey, you there? Why so quiet? Yes, uncle. See, we've run into a little trouble on the road. If you could please? Oh. Sorry, Trey, but I'm out of town for business. Some other time. Send my best wishes to Keziah. Let her know that I am incredibly proud of her. Click. The call ended. Tremaine then tried Aunt Fatima. The reply was nearly identical. Oh, Tremaine, I'm just so busy. I am at the social club. You're with Keziah, right? Your wife is all anyone can talk about. So beautiful, so wealthy, and so devout. Take good care of her. Must run. No one was willing to help. The news of the $15,000 donation had transformed Keziah into a saint in the extended family's view, and by extension had cast them, Tremaine, Miss Rowena, and Seraphina, as the avaricious antagonists. Who would even consider helping parasites just put in their place by their host? Seraphina, seeing the utter despair on her brother's face, thought of one last hope, Trayvon, her fiancé. Of course Trayvon would save her. He was her Prince Charming. With shaking hands, Seraphina called him, Hello, baby. Where are you? You have to help me, she sobbed into the phone. I was just kicked out by my sister-in-law, Keziah. The wedding? I know. Trayvon's voice on the other end of the line was cold, incredibly cold. I've heard the entire story, Seraphina. My mother just got a call from the venue. They are charging us a cancellation fee of $5,000 because we co-signed the contract as the second responsible party. Seraphina was stunned. What? But that is my sister-in-law Keziah's responsibility. Your sister-in-law has washed her hands of it. Her attorney claims she's not liable for your debts, and now my family's reputation is on the line. My mother insisted I find you. Send me your location immediately. It wasn't the loving tone Seraphina had hoped for. It was one laced with rage. But a panicked Seraphina still clung to hope. Yes, honey, sending it right away. The three waited by the vacant security booth. 30 minutes later, a high-end sedan arrived. It wasn't Trayvon by himself. He exited the car with his mother, a rigid woman adorned with ostentatious jewelry. Seraphina. Trayvon's mother began curtly. I need to speak. They stood on the curb. Trayvon's mother glared at Miss Rowena with contempt. So you're Miss Rowena, the supposedly respectable family. It seems is just mooching off their daughter-in-law. You watch your tone, Miss Rowena hissed, her voice frail. I don't have to watch my tone, Trayvon's mother snapped. You've disgraced my family planning a lavish wedding with no money. And now we're being hounded for a cancellation penalty of $5,000. Seraphina gazed at Trayvon, begging with her eyes. Trayvon, darling, please. Trayvon averted his gaze. He could not bring himself to look at Seraphina. I'm sorry, Sarah, he murmured softly. My mother is correct. I can't marry into a family of swindlers. Swindlers? Seraphina shrieked. Yes, swindlers, Trayvon's mother affirmed. You pretend to have wealth, but you're penniless. This wedding is off. And be clear, we will not be paying your debts. We will pursue legal action for those $5,000. Here's the bill. I hope you enjoy it. She flung the paper with the venue's invoice directly at Serafina's chest. Trayvon and his mother re-entered their vehicle and sped off, leaving Serafina crumpled on the pavement clutching the worthless invoice. Tremaine and Mizra, Lena could only stare. They had reached their lowest point, homeless, carless, broke, and with no family to turn to. Now pursued by a debt of $5,000. That evening, they used the last of the cash in Tremaine's wallet. Kezia's $50 he'd held onto, plus a few small bills for a car service to the most degrading place. Tremaine could ever fathom a small rental unit in a cramped alley on the city's fringe. It was a place he had rented as a penniless student long before he ever met Kazuya. The space was tight, suffocating, and smelled of sewage. It had only one room, a grimy bathroom, and a minuscule kitchen. This was their new existence. The following morning, Tremaine, clinging to the tatters of his pride, attempted to go into his office. He had to ride a bus. He got to the lobby of his plush office building and swiped his card. The gate remained shut. A red light flashed. Access denied. He telephoned HR. Mr. Tremaine. Oh yes. My apologies, sir, but due to corporate restructuring and a recent performance evaluation, we've had to terminate your employment. Effective immediately, your official termination letter will be sent via email. Restructuring. Tremaine knew that was a fabrication. This company was a partner of Kazuya's family, requiring just one phone call from Kazuya, or her attorney was sufficient to utterly ruin him. He trudged back to their rented hovel in the alley in the midday sun. Miss Rowena and Serafina sat listlessly on the floor, their gazes vacant. Well? Miss Rowena pressed. Tremaine only shook his head and collapsed onto the thin mattress. It's over. Miss Rowena would not give in. She refused to live like this. One final hope remained: her jewelry, all the gold, diamonds, and bracelets she had amassed. She emptied her purse, spilling them all out. We still have these, she declared. They can be sold. She left the alley to find the nearest pawn shop. Entering with the last of her pride, she said, Sir, I want to pawn this, she announced, setting a large diamond necklace on the glass. The shop owner picked it up, examining it closely. He then scraped it against a testing stone and applied a chemical solution. A soft chuckle escaped him. Why are you laughing? Demanded Miss Rowena, insulted. The man eyed her with amusement. Ma'am, this is counterfeit. A high-quality imitation, but a fake, nonetheless. It's glass and zirconia, not a diamond. Fake, Miss Rowena echoed in disbelief. The man lifted her gold bracelet. This as well, merely gold-plated over a brass core. He then checked all of Miss Rowena's pieces. It's all fraudulent, ma'am, every piece. Miss Rowena stood utterly speechless. She recalled that Tremaine had purchased most of these trinkets, all bought with Kazuya's own funds. Tremaine, or even Kezia, had been giving her false gifts all along. All of her pride was a complete falsehood. The proprietor gazed at her with a look of pity mingled with amusement. If you sell these by weight at a flea market, the most you'll receive is $50, ma'am. Miss Rowena's knees felt weak. To be scorned by the owner of a simple pawn shop, in some cramped back alley. This had to be karma. This was the absolute end. 1 week had elapsed since the tempest. 1 week since Kazuya froze, their accounts halted all transfers, and delivered the donation receipt that shattered her husband's family. Within the ICU, time seemed to move at its own pace. Kazuya gave them no further thought. Her phone was silent now, her number changed. Sharing it only with Mr. Sterling and a handful of her mother's closest relatives. Her focus was 100% devoted to the woman who lay in that hospital bed. Each morning she would read from the Book of Psalms softly into her mother's ear. Every afternoon she would recount happy news, speaking as if her mother could hear. She told her of the $15,000 donation. Mama, she whispered one afternoon, gently bathing her mother's arm with a warm cloth. Kazuya has donated the money. In your name to the Children's Cancer Foundation precisely as you wished. There are now 10 children who can receive treatment, all because of you. Everyone sends their prayers. They're all saying, "Get well soon, Mama Effie. You simply have to wake up. You must hear their prayers." She repeated this daily like a sacred mantra, planting seeds of hope not only for her mother's sake, but for her own as well. Then that very morning, a miracle occurred. As Kezia was reciting her daily prayers, she felt her hand being squeezed in return, a faint but definite pressure. Keziah abruptly stopped reading, her gaze locked on her mother's fingers as they stirred. Then Mama Effie's eyelids began to flutter ever so slowly. Her eyes opened their gaze unfocused, struggling to find a focal point. "Mama," Keziah's voice quivered. It was Mama Effie's eyes, at last found her daughter's face. The breathing tube kept her silent, but a single tear traced a path from the corner of her eye. Keziah cried not with the pain of the past week, but with overwhelming tears of sheer joy. She immediately pressed the nurse's call button. The attending doctor and several nurses rushed in. They checked the monitors, her pupils, and her mother's reactions. The lead physician for Mama Effie arrived moments later. After a thorough examination, he stepped out and met Keziah with a smile of pure relief. "This is a true miracle, Miss Keziah," the doctor stated. "Honestly, we were not optimistic, but then about 5 days ago, her vitals improved drastically, brain responses heightened, and her body chose to fight. And now today, she has awakened. Miss Effie's fighting spirit is incredible." Keziah smiled through a curtain of tears. 5 days ago, right after I told her about the donation, "It was the prayers, doctor, the prayers of the children," Keziah whispered. Mama Effie's recovery was unexpectedly rapid. In only a few days, they took out the breathing tube. She was moved into a private room. Keziah cared for her tirelessly, feeding her porridge and helping her learn to speak once more, and shared everything but Tremaine's betrayal. She simply said, "Mama, I am arranging a separation from Tremaine. Things just are not working out. Please pray for me." Mama Effie, though still frail, had a knowing, sharp gaze, simply nodded while stroking her daughter's head. She knew more than Keziah realized. While tending to her mother, Keziah also began arranging for her own freedom. Mr. Sterling arrived at the hospital holding a thick folder. "Everything is prepared, Miss Keziah," he told her in the lobby. "The house has already received its highest bid, far exceeding the market value. They are desperate, ma'am. A source informed me they are now in a rented house, down some back alley on the edge of town. Tremaine lost his job, and to top it off, his ex-fiancée's family is suing them for a $5,000 venue cancellation fee." Keziah absorbed all this calmly, feeling no pity and no excessive glee, only a sense of pure relief, like a great weight had at last been lifted. Then Mr. Sterling presented her with a paper and a pen. "The divorce papers. I've listed the grounds, including spousal abandonment, especially during a parent's critical illness, plus moral and material damages. Just sign here." Keziah took the pen, her wedding day flashing through her mind. She recalled her vow to be a dutiful wife. She believed obedience required enduring all bitterness. She had been wrong. She drew a long, deep breath, and then signed her name with a firm hand, without a single shred of doubt. It wasn't just signing divorce papers, it was a signature on her personal declaration of independence. 2 weeks later, Mama Effie was discharged. She still required a wheelchair temporarily, but her spirit was fully restored. Keziah pushed her mother's wheelchair along the hospital corridor, which now seemed so friendly. They were laughing, planning the first meal they would cook at home. Keziah's new home, smaller but cozy, which Mr. Sterling had prepared. As they neared the lobby, Keziah's footsteps faltered. A figure stood there, obstructing their way. The man was grimy, with long, matted hair. His face appeared gaunt beneath a messy stubble. His once expensive clothes now hung worn and loose on his much thinner frame. It was Tremaine, his eyes red and desperate as they fixed on Kezia. "Kezia," he rasped. From her wheelchair, Mama Effie clutched her daughter's arm. She recognized him, the one who was absent when she was dying. The gawking crowd in the lobby meant nothing to Tremaine, nor did the security guards now closing in on him. He took several steps forward before he knelt, dropping down onto the freshly cleaned floor, landing right at Kazia's feet. "Kazia, forgive me," he yelled, his voice cracking into a desperate sob. "I was wrong, completely blind. I am begging you, Kaz, please forgive me." The onlookers stopped in their tracks, watching. "I have lost it all, Kez." He wept, reaching for her dress. "I was fired, we lost the house, they took the car. We're in a wretched place. My mother and Serafina suffer. I'm suffering too. I'm pleading, Keziah, take back the divorce papers. Let's start again. I swear. I swear I'll be a better husband. I'll even wash your feet each day. I am begging you, Keziah." Kezia stared down at the man weeping at her feet, the man she had loved, the one she had served, he, whom she gave her all. He seemed so small now, so pathetic. Keziah felt no anger, not even hate, only an empty hollow inside her. It was as if she were staring at a total stranger. "Keziah, honey, please," Tremaine pleaded, looking up, his face full of hope. Kezia met Tremaine's gaze directly. She slowly pulled her foot away from him, her expression serene, veiled by her tidy head wrap. Then she spoke, her voice quiet but piercingly cold, echoing through the now silent lobby. "Excuse me." Tremaine's face lit up at once, misreading it as forgiveness. "Yes, Kez. Are you forgiving me? Will you take me back?" Kezia slowly shook her head. "No." She leaned slightly closer, gazing at the man who was still technically her husband. "Pardon me, but who are you?" Tremaine froze. Her words, sharper than any blade and colder than ice, struck him with full impact. Kezia didn't wait for a reply as she stood tall. "It's time to go, Mama," she said gently to her mother. "Our car is waiting outside." She began to push her mother's wheelchair, moving past the still kneeling figure of Tremaine on the floor. She moved directly towards the automatic doors and into the bright sunlight, never once glancing behind her. She left Tremaine alone in the lobby, a public spectacle, drowning in his humiliation. 6 months passed. Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. The terminal was bustling with activity. Emerging from the international arrivals gate, Kezia pushed her mother, who was seated in a comfortable wheelchair. Mama Effie no longer required the chair, but the airline provided it for her comfort. She appeared to be in excellent health, vibrant and clearly overjoyed. Her face glowed, her cheeks were full again. She was holding a bouquet of tulips that she had purchased while in Amsterdam. Kezia, meanwhile, was completely transformed into a new woman. She sported a chic modern head wrap and an expensive cream-colored pantsuit. Her face was radiant, her smile widening as she spoke with her mother. "Simply wonderful. The trip to Vienna and Istanbul was just incredible, right, Mama?" Kezia exclaimed as she pushed their luggage cart. "Incredible, my daughter," Mama Effie answered, laughing softly. "So much more beautiful than just Ibiza, isn't she?" She teased her daughter, and the two of them chuckled. This was the very vacation Miss Rowena had requested. Kezia had fulfilled the wish, but for her own mother, and far more opulently. "Once this is over, Mama, you're going straight home to relax. I need to stop by the office briefly for a shareholders meeting." Following the finalization of her divorce, she reclaimed everything. Tremaine was left without a single dollar to his name. Kezia reclaimed the company her father had bequeathed, which her mother managed from afar. Armed with financial acumen and a new resolve, she completely reversed the company's fortunes in just 6 months. Now she was its revered CEO. Meanwhile, across town, from a tiny rental in a cramped, suffocating alleyway, a door with flaking paint creaked open, followed by a piercing scream. "You've been glued to that phone all morning, you useless thing! Help me with this sewing, the customer orders are piling up." That was Miss Rowena's voice. She appeared a decade older. Her once perfectly styled hair was now thin and haphazardly thrown into a knot. She sat amidst piles of fabric scraps on the floor, intensely focused on an antiquated sewing machine before her. Her new life was that of a seamstress mending clothes for neighbors. They paid her a mere $5 per item. Serafina, looking just as unkempt, tossed her phone onto the mattress. "What is it now, Mama?" I'm trying to run a live stream to sell things, but I have no viewers. She shrieked in frustration. This is all on you, Mama, and your greed. Had you just been kind to Keziah, our lives wouldn't have come to this. How dare you point the finger at me? Miss Rowena shot up her eyes, bloodshot with rage. This is your fault, you spoiled brat. Demanding that extravagant wedding, and it's because of your gutless brother Tremaine. He hasn't sent a cent in a month. Who even knows where he is? He's not sending money because he has none. Serafina screeched. How much do you think a day laborer makes? It's barely enough to feed himself. Bah! You're all alike, a bunch of useless children. Miss Rowena hurled a limp feather pillow at Serafina. They descended into a screaming match, yanking at hair and trading insults, squabbling over who would eat the final package of instant noodles that sat in their squalid kitchen. They were ensnared in a vicious cycle of poverty and relentless blame. Elsewhere, on a muddy, fish-scented loading dock, the sun had barely risen, yet one man was already drenched in sweat. He was gaunt, with sun-scorched skin, his t-shirt ripped at the shoulder and plastered to a back that now revealed his skeleton. It was Tremaine straining to move a hand truck laden with rice sacks that weighed hundreds of pounds. Hey, Tremaine, move it. Quit gawking and get to work, a foreman yelled from across the way. Tremaine, gasping for air, gave a reluctant nod. He shoved the hand truck with his remaining energy, maneuvering it toward the roadside, where it would be collected by a truck. As he waited for its arrival, he paused for a brief moment. He swiped the sweat from his brow with a grimy sleeve, his exhausted gaze drifting across the street. There, atop a skyscraper, a massive video screen was live-streaming a morning awards ceremony. And the award and special recognition for this year's Young Philanthropist is awarded to. The camera then centered on a figure ascending the stage, an elegant woman in a chic cream-colored head wrap, beaming as she accepted a gleaming trophy. It was Keziah. Below the screen read, Keziah, daughter of John Honored, for her unwavering commitment via the Children's Hope Foundation. Tremaine was paralyzed. A vice seemed to grip his very heart. The hand truck before him suddenly felt heavier. He stared at Keziah's face on the giant screen, the one he'd squandered now, so utterly luminous, so joyful and completely beyond his grasp. He was a grimy manual laborer, and that woman was a celebrity. At that very instant, a polished black luxury car halted at the light right beside Tremaine. The vehicle's windows were completely blacked out. Tremaine was unable to see within. Inside the vehicle, Keziah had just ended the call with her mother. Of course, Mama. I'm on my way to the office now. You should get some rest. She set the phone down, her gaze drifting out the window. It swept over the loading dock, the crowd and the men hard at work. She didn't notice Tremaine in particular. It was merely an ordinary sight. Then, a gentle smile of contentment graced her lips. Not from witnessing hardship, but from a profound gratitude for her life today. She had survived the storm and discovered her rainbow. The light went green, and the luxury car sailed smoothly over the pavement, turning decisively to pull away from the loading dock, carrying her toward the skyscrapers housing her office. On the pavement, Tremaine stood completely still, his eyes fixed on the screen. A truck's horn blared from behind, jolting him awake. Hey, move it. You're in the way. Tremaine flinched, lowering his head in shame, to hide his face slick with sweat and bitter tears of regret. He gripped the cart's handle again, and with what little strength remained, pushed, his burden of karma under the morning sun. Did you enjoy this story, and from which city are you currently watching? Let's all meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can show support by sending a super thanks so I'm able to continue bringing you more tales like this. Thank you dearly for your wonderful support. I can't wait to read your thoughts. On screen, you'll find 2 new life stories I wholeheartedly recommend. There's plenty more to discover on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next story with my love and respect.